The stench struck them first. 20,000 decomposing corpses do more than offend the eyes. They penetrate every sense, making even seasoned Ottoman fighters retch and stagger. As Sultan Mehmed II, the same ruler who had broken the walls of Constantinople, approached the Wallachian stronghold, he expected fortifications, soldiers, preparations for resistance. Instead, he was confronted with something that would linger in his nightmares, a forest, not of trees but of bodies raised on sharpened posts. Human beings impaled, left in various states of decay, some grotesquely twitching even after days of torment. At the heart of this grotesque woodland, on the tallest spike of all, dressed in full ceremonial robes, hung Hamza Pasha, to pause. In the next minutes, you are about to uncover the most dreadful reality behind the legend of Dracula, not the pale creature of novels, but the authentic prince, whose atrocities were so inventive, so merciless, that even hardened conquerors turned pale and fled. And the truth is more unsettling still. None of this belonged to folklore. It was not the product of medieval imagination. It was the deliberate work of a real man, one who learned that if performed with skill, a human body can linger alive on a stake for 3 long days. Soon you will see how he mastered this, and why a childhood spent in captivity forged one of Europe's darkest rulers. Winter, 1431. Saichuara, Transylvania. Inside a stone dwelling marked with a dragon emblem, a woman screamed in childbirth. The child delivered that night would one day make multitudes scream in agony. They named him Vlad, after his father. History, however, would remember him for what he perfected, driving men and women onto wooden spikes. His father, Vlad II Dracul, was sworn into the Order of the Dragon, a Christian chivalric brotherhood devoted to shielding Europe from advancing Ottoman armies. Dracul translates as dragon in Romanian, and so his boy inherited the name Dracula, son of the dragon. But the world would not tremble at that title. Instead, terror would cling to another name, the Impaler, a name earned not from myths but from his chosen method of killing. Consider the world this infant entered. The Ottoman tide was rolling westward like a plague, devouring one Christian kingdom after another. Even Constantinople, the jewel of Byzantium, a 1,000-year bulwark, was nearing collapse. Between this Muslim empire and Latin Europe lay Wallachia, a vulnerable frontier whose soil became a killing ground. And it was here that the young prince learned the first principles of power, that fear outweighs loyalty, and that terror is born from inflicted pain. But to grasp how a boy became a butcher, one must confront the day his childhood ended. The year was 1442. Sultan Murad II summoned Vlad Dracul for negotiations. In truth, it was a snare. Dracul, compelled, brought with him his 2 youngest sons, Vlad, 11, and Radu, only 7. The instant they crossed Ottoman lines, they were seized. Murad offered terms: leave the boys as hostages to ensure allegiance, or see them slain before his eyes. Faced with that choice, Dracul chose his crown. He rode away, leaving his children in enemy hands. Young Vlad watched his father's figure diminish against the horizon, his last glimpse of innocence. The Ottomans boasted that noble captives were treated generously. Instruction in languages, philosophy, military science, and for fair, delicate Radu, it was true. The boy embraced Islam, won the Sultan's favor, and according to rumor, perhaps even more intimate attention. But Vlad did not yield. He mocked his tutors, spat on their Quran, fought fellow hostages who insulted Christianity. Defiance came at a cost. The Turks had methods to unmake stubborn youths: the falaka, striking the souls until they split; the bastinado, suspending a body upside down and beating it bloody; privation, seclusion, endless darkness. Yet one punishment mattered most. In captivity, Vlad was forced to witness executions, especially impalements. The Ottomans reserved this for those deemed worthy of more than mere death. He watched as prisoners were set upon greased stakes, their own weight slowly pushing wood through flesh. He noticed the details. The stake must be blunt, not sharp, to avoid piercing vital organs too quickly. Angled properly, it threaded the spine, emerging from shoulder or mouth, prolonging life. At 12, he absorbed these lessons with chilling clarity. Every moan, every twitch became instruction. Meanwhile, in Wallachia, chaos reigned. His father played every faction: Hungarians, Turks, fellow Christians, in hopes of holding his throne. It ended in disaster. In 1447, Wallachian nobles allied with Hungarian regent John Hunyadi ambushed Dracul near Bushilteni. They cut him apart, but saved a unique cruelty for Vlad's elder brother, Mircea. Captured alive, his eyes were seared out with heated irons, still shrieking, still breathing. He was then buried alive. He clawed at the soil until silence claimed him. The message reached the Ottoman court. 16-year-old Vlad listened calmly. His captors anticipated grief, fury, collapse. Instead, he asked only, how long did it take him to suffocate? They did not perceive what they had built. Not a broken boy, but a weapon honed by torment. 6 years of lashings and humiliations had not subdued him. They had sculpted him. Every flogging, every moment of enforced helplessness, every public impalement he was made to watch, was not eroding his will. It was instructing him in how to wield suffering. The Ottomans, deciding he might serve their purposes, released him with a modest retinue to claim Wallachia's throne. His first rule lasted scarcely 2 months before exile, but even in that brief reign, at just 17, his taste for cruelty showed itself. A merchant accused another of theft. Vlad ordered the suspect's feet flayed, the raw flesh salted, merely rehearsal for horrors to come. For the next 8 years, Vlad drifted through armies, absorbing the mechanics of war. He fought even under John Hunyadi, the same man who had sanctioned his father's death, because revenge could wait, but experience could not. He learned siegecraft, cavalry tactics, the manipulations of morale. Above all, he built alliances among men who despised both the Ottomans and the treacherous Boyars. At last his chance arose. With Hungarian backing, he invaded once more. Vladislav II, the reigning prince, met him in combat. Legend claims Vlad did not merely kill him. He beheaded him by sawing through his neck, deliberately, while he still breathed. But worse was to come. Easter Sunday, 1457. Vlad invited scores of noble boyar families to a banquet in Targovice. These were the men who had betrayed his father, buried his brother alive. They arrived resplendent, thinking reconciliation awaited them. The feast was lavish. Wine flowed, music soared. Then Vlad posed a question. How many rulers had each seen in their lifetime? They answered candidly, some 5, some 20, some 30. With every response they confessed what he already knew, that they survived by treachery, betraying each prince in turn. Vlad nodded, then gave the signal. Soldiers stormed the hall. The elderly and feeble were impaled immediately in the courtyard, screams echoing back into the feast. The stronger were chained, marched north, still clad in silks, and forced to rebuild Pulnenari Castle stone by stone. Their garments rotted from their bodies. When they collapsed, they too were spitted, and so began the reign of Vlad the Impaler. Records reveal that what followed shocked even by the savage standards of the 15th century. But before we continue deeper into Vlad's abyss, remember, if you find these suppressed stories as unnerving as I do, subscribe, because the tale of Vlad grows far darker still. Let us move to the event that secured his infamous name. The year 1459. Brasov, a wealthy Saxon trading town, had given shelter to Vlad's rivals and pretenders. He issued a warning, which the city dismissed. So Vlad marched with 20,000 troops to make an example. He did not simply besiege the settlement. He transformed it into an exhibit of horror. The Black Church, Brasov's great landmark, earned its name from the flames he set. But fire, in truth, was merciful compared to what came next. Women and children alike were impaled in rigid rows. Infants were forced onto the same spikes as their mothers, placed at the breast as if still suckling. Pregnant women were transfixed through the womb, and in the center of this obscene display, Vlad dined. A table was laid among the moaning, the begging, the shrieks. Servants brought roasted meat, warm bread, and wine. He ate calmly while tens of thousands died around him. One noble nearby gagged at the reek of blood and excrement. Vlad noticed. "Does the smell offend you?" he asked. When the man admitted it did, Vlad had him hoisted onto a stake, twice as high as the rest. "From up there," he said lightly, "the odor won't reach you." German and Russian chroniclers add one further detail. so obscene that many historians choose to omit it. Vlad dipped bread into the blood pooling beneath the dying and consumed it. It became his ritual, blood-soaked bread at mass executions. The arithmetic is staggering. Some estimates place his death toll at 40,000, others at 80,000. In a principality of 500,000, that could mean 1/5 of the entire population. Proportionally, more than Stalin, more than Pol Pot. But unlike modern dictators, Vlad did not order cruelty from afar. He was present. He invented new forms. Ordinary impalement was too plain, so he devised refinements through the mouth for liars, through the skull for thieves, slowly hammered in with mallets, so the victim lingered alive. Women accused of adultery were penetrated by stakes that emerged from the mouth. He varied the angles, upright, inverted, sideways, sometimes arranging the corpses into shapes that spelled out messages. 2 turning points pushed him from tyrant to true monster. First, his remarriage. The name of his first wife is forgotten, but he sought an heir. Second, the demand from Macabre tribute. Not only coin, but 500 boys for the Janissaries. Children to be taken, converted and trained as Ottoman troops. Vlad's answer was defiance. Come claim them yourself. When Ottoman envoys arrived to collect the tribute, they refused to remove their turbans, citing custom. Vlad applauded their devotion, then ordered the turbans nailed to their skulls with iron spikes. The emissaries were returned still alive, their sacred headwear now permanent. Enraged, the Sultan dispatched Hamza Pasha with an army. Vlad ambushed them in the dark, captured thousands, and impaled them all. For Hamza himself, Vlad prepared a spectacle. First, he was emasculated, his genitals shoved into his mouth. Then, in mock honor of his station, he was raised upon a gilded stake. Even torture, in Vlad's mind, required hierarchy. This leads us to 1462, the year that sealed Vlad's place in memory. Mehmed II, famed as the conqueror, after seizing Constantinople, personally advanced at the head of an army, perhaps 150,000 strong. Some claim even 300,000. Vlad could muster 30,000 at best. Many old men and boys. A pitched battle would be suicide. So he waged war by ruin. As the Ottomans marched, they found scorched fields, abandoned villages, fouled wells. Nothing remained to feed them. Worse still, Vlad sent infected prostitutes into their camps, spreading plague among the soldiers. Disease devoured them before combat began. Then came June 17th, 1462, the night attack. With a picked cavalry force, Vlad infiltrated the Ottoman camp under cover of moonlight. His objective, kill Mehmed in his tent and end the invasion. He slashed through guards, searched frantically for the Sultan's pavilion, and struck the wrong one. The Grand Vizier fell instead. The camp erupted in chaos. Vlad escaped by inches, his assassination foiled. The next morning Mehmed pressed toward Targovici, Vlad's capital. The gates yawned open. No defenders lined the walls. Suspicion gnawed. The Sultan advanced carefully, and then they saw it. Before describing the most revolting sight in military chronicles, grasp the magnitude. For acres upon acres, 7 full hectares, wooden stakes rose in circles, 20,000 in total. Upon each, a human body, in every stage of corruption. Turks seized in prior battles, Bulgarian Muslims who aided them, Wallachian traitors, some corpses blackened by weeks of rot, crows tearing strips from them, others freshly impaled, still moaning. The arrangement was deliberate, like a ghastly garden. At the center, on the tallest pole, gleamed Hamza Pasha's gilded spike, his corpse armored, ceremonial, still grotesquely erect. The stench alone made veterans retch. The sight made them weep. These were men who had stormed fortresses, seen Constantinople collapse. But this was something else. Not warfare, not politics. It was insanity given order. Mehmed the Conqueror, the same sovereign who extinguished the Byzantine Empire, looked upon the forest of the impaled and uttered words that endured. I cannot seize the realm of one who can do such things. What defense exists against a devil? The invincible conqueror turned back. The man who had never retreated. Vlad, meanwhile, considered it his crowning achievement. He paced among the spikes like a sculptor, inspecting his work. He straightened bodies that slipped. He noted which techniques prolonged life longest. This was not merely strategy, it was delight. One captured Turkish account, often omitted from modern histories, claims Vlad would stroll the fields at night, alone. He would sit beside the impaled and listen to their whimpers, as though to music. He touched the stakes, feeling the vibrations of struggling flesh. He drank wine, raising toasts to the dying. This was Vlad, in truth. Not a stalwart defender of Christendom, not a stern but necessary ruler, a man who found ecstasy in human agony. Yet his triumph was brief. The Ottomans did not leave empty-handed. They advanced his brother Radu, the handsome youth who had thrived in captivity. Radu promised the Wallachians peace if they joined him, or torment if they stayed loyal to Vlad. The choice was simple. His nobles abandoned him. His army melted away. By August 1462, Vlad was fleeing north to Hungary, appealing to King Matthias Corvinus for aid. But Corvinus had been secretly corresponding with the Sultan. When Vlad arrived, he was seized, shackled, and cast into prison. For 12 long years he rotted in Hungarian dungeons. Yet the sickness remained. Guards reported finding rats impaled on splinters in his cell, birds skewered on quills, insects arranged on miniature stakes. Asked why, he answered, to keep his skill sharp. Even confined, his mind obsessed over techniques of torment. The guards, horrified, eventually ceased bringing him anything that might serve as a weapon. The political landscape shifted. Hungary once again needed allies against the Ottoman threat, and so Vlad was released. To secure his position, he married a noblewoman from a prominent Hungarian family, converted to Catholicism for appearances, and was granted soldiers to reclaim Wallachia. Thus began his third reign in 1476. By now he was older, well into his 40s, but age had not softened him. If anything, his time in confinement had distilled his cruelty into something even more refined. Impalements resumed at once, but now accompanied by psychological theatre. He forced families to watch each other's deaths, beginning with the children, then the mothers, and finally the fathers. He devised new angles of impalement that prolonged life for nearly a week. Chroniclers of the time hesitated to record some of these scenes, so grotesque were they. One tale describes a circle of captured Turks. Vlad had them impaled in rows of varying heights, shorter in front, taller in back, forming a ghastly amphitheatre. At the center, a pregnant woman was raised on a vertical stake. Over hours of torment she gave birth, still transfixed. The infant died immediately. Vlad remained present, carefully observing, noting durations and effects. This was not combat. This was not madness in the raw. This was deliberate, purposeful evil. By December of 1476, his fortunes reversed again, marching with a small contingent. He was ambushed by Ottoman forces. Accounts differ. Some claim betrayal by his own disillusioned soldiers. Others insist sheer numbers overwhelmed him. What is certain is this: Vlad the Impaler fell in battle. His head was severed, preserved in honey, and carried to Constantinople. There, Sultan Mehmed II displayed it proudly on a stake above the city gates. The irony was undeniable. The Impaler, finally impaled. As for his body, legends diverge. Some say he was buried at Snagov Monastery. When archaeologists opened the supposed tomb in 1931, they found nothing. Some believe monks had removed the corpse in revulsion. Others whisper darker theories that his remains were hidden, or worse, venerated in secret. Yet his death was not the end. You might expect me now to mention Bram Stoker and vampires, but the truth is grimmer than Gothic fantasy. The true horror lies not in legend, but in legacy. In modern Romania, Vlad is hailed by many as a national hero. Yes, hero. The same man who oversaw mass death, who soaked bread in blood, who impaled mothers with infants still at their breasts, is commemorated with statues and souvenirs. Nationalists celebrate him as a defender of the faith, a bulwark against Islam, a champion who held the Ottomans at bay. They speak of his harsh justice, that he made Wallachia so orderly that a golden goblet could be left unattended at a fountain without theft. They do not speak of the forests of corpses that enforced this order. This, perhaps, is the greatest horror. Not that monsters are born, but that societies excuse them, so long as they were our monsters. Vlad did not slaughter Turks because he protected Christianity. He slaughtered them because he relished it. He killed Christians as well, nobles and peasants alike. Anyone who crossed him, or who did nothing at all, save exist at the wrong moment. When no excuses remained, he invented them. Other rulers of the era killed out of necessity, or to enforce law. Vlad killed out of choice, out of enjoyment. He transformed execution into a performance, a grotesque form of entertainment. Merchants who looked at him the wrong way, women whose cooking displeased him, children who cried too loudly, anyone could be raised on a stake. He once impaled foreign emissaries for being dressed too elegantly, saying their finery insulted Wallachian humility. German accounts tell of a peasant whose shirt was torn when Vlad asked if he had a wife, and the man said yes, she was impaled for failing to care for his clothing. Then Vlad gifted him a new wife, warning her to do better, or join the first. This was not justice. This was trauma made flesh, cruelty distilled into governance. His years as a hostage, watching torments he could not prevent, had carved him into something worse than his captors. The Ottomans impaled enemies. Vlad impaled everyone. The Ottomans tortured for information or deterrence. Vlad tortured for satisfaction. Modern psychologists reviewing his deeds classify him as a sadistic psychopath. Many note his fixation on sexualized impalements, suggesting deep dysfunction. The ingredients are classic in the making of a serial killer: childhood trauma, humiliation, powerlessness, and then later, absolute power. But unlike an ordinary serial killer, Vlad commanded armies and a throne. What chills most is the testimony of those who met him. They describe not a drooling lunatic, but a cultivated, intelligent man. He spoke several languages, wrote poetry, understood theology and philosophy. He could be gracious, even charming, but he chose consciously, deliberately, to apply his intellect toward maximizing agony. Russian chronicles recount visiting merchants welcomed warmly, treated generously at dinner. As they departed, Vlad casually remarked that their servants had been impaled during the meal, just to test if they would notice. They had not. He laughed as they discovered the corpses on their way out. That is true evil, not frenzy, but calculation, not madness, but method. A cultured prince who selected cruelty as his art. In one of his final letters, penned mere days before his last campaign, Vlad lamented not military shortages, but restrictions. He complained that his Hungarian allies would not permit him to impale freely enough. Even with Ottoman armies massing, his grievance was not strategy, it was his limited quota of suffering. And so, when the sword finally cut him down, it was not the death of a defender of Christendom, it was the extermination of a rabid creature disguised as royalty. The real Dracula did not dread crucifixes or sunlight. He did not suck blood with fangs. He did worse. He proved that childhood torment and unchecked power can forge a human more monstrous than any myth. He revealed that the gravest horrors do not rise from graves, but from broken men permitted to break others. Consider the visions left behind: 20,000 bodies rotting on stakes, infants dying against their mothers' breasts, children watching parents torn apart, pregnant women birthing in agony upon poles. These are not exaggerations. They are not myths. And here lies the most unsettling truth of all. Vlad's strategy worked. His terror campaign achieved results. The Ottomans hesitated for years before attempting another full-scale invasion of Wallachia. His name became a whispered curse. Turkish mothers frightened children with it. A bey or Kazakh voivoda will come for you, the impaler prince. A figure so fearsome that even mighty armies chose retreat over confrontation. Something malignant took root in that soil, soaked with the fluids of 80,000 impaled victims. Not vampirism, that was Stoker's invention centuries later, but the idea that the ultimate weapon is cruelty itself, that terror outweighs courage, that fear can defeat steel. One man, twisted by pain, proved that ruthlessness could send empires stumbling backward. Vlad the Impaler did more than massacre. He destroyed the belief that human cruelty has limits. He demonstrated that with sufficient trauma and unchecked power, any boundary can be crossed. He became proof that devils exist. Not in folklore, but in flesh. The forest of corpses outside Targovice was not only a war crime, it was a declaration. It proclaimed, "This is what man can do. This is what I can do." and I take joy in it. Mehmed the Conqueror, who had seen the greatest city of the East reduced to rubble, looked upon that nightmare and recognized something conquest could not extinguish. He saw evil unmasked, pure, gleeful cruelty, and he recoiled. Yet centuries later, we do not recoil. We carve his likeness on coins. We build statues in his honor. We sell trinkets with his face. We tell ourselves he was necessary, that his atrocities were the price of survival. We erase his victims from memory to glorify his defiance. And that, perhaps, is the deeper horror, our willingness to make heroes of monsters, to praise those who stand on our side, no matter what they did, to speak of justice when what they brought was only terror. Vlad did not impale 20,000 Turks because he defended Christianity. He impaled them because it pleased him. He did the same to Christians, to merchants, to peasants, to nobles, to strangers whose clothing or cooking displeased him. He once executed foreign ambassadors for their wealth of dress. He had peasants' wives murdered for failing to mend shirts. He needed no justification beyond whim. Other princes wielded execution reluctantly, as a tool of order. Vlad wielded it hungrily, as sport. Other rulers punished traitors. Vlad punished at random. The numbers cannot be dismissed. 20,000 corpses displayed on stakes, infants dead against their mothers' chests, children made to watch parents tortured, women giving birth while skewered alive. This is not rumor. It is chronicled fact by German, Russian, and Ottoman sources alike. And yet the most chilling truth remains that his reign of terror succeeded. It delayed invasions. It bought time for kingdoms. It turned Vlad into a legend of power, and in doing so, it taught a lesson that survives, that fear itself can be a weapon stronger than armies. That is Vlad's true legacy. Not vampires, not folklore, but the revelation that terror works, that cruelty compels obedience, that sheer ruthlessness can alter the course of history, and that, so long as people are willing to excuse monsters because they serve a cause, more monsters will rise. Vlad Therese, the so-called Dracula, perished in winter 1476. His head rotted on a stake above Constantinople's gate, but his shadow endures. Every tyrant who uses terror, every ruler who revels in torment, every child broken in youth who grows to break others, all are heirs of Vlad the Impaler. He was the prince who turned his land into a slaughterhouse, the man who made hell itself visible on earth, and called it justice. So if Vlad's sadism disturbs you, know this. He was not alone. In France, another nobleman, Gilles de Rais, committed murders so grotesque that Vlad's atrocities pale by comparison. What he did to hundreds of children inside his fortress makes even the Impaler seem merciful. But that is another story. Subscribe if you wish to hear it, because history holds horrors far more dreadful than fiction. And the worst monsters are never those with fangs or wings. They are the ones crowned, obeyed, and remembered as heroes.